Then she picks up the cow. Cow, eat hay. And I'm just like, oh my God. So the topic of speech therapy is one that has been a little confusing for me from day one. When you get that autism diagnosis, you get a list of therapies that your child needs, and you trust the professionals to guide you down that road as far as what is going to help your child get better. What's going to help them succeed in life is really, as parents, what we are looking for. Speech therapy was one of those things that I took her to, and I didn't always understand what I was supposed to be seeing from that, or really what it was for my child. I wasn't seeing it. So what I'm going to do for you today is I'm going to be sharing our goals, the past goal that we've had, not all of her goals. We've had 4 years of speech therapy, but her second most recent goals and the goals that she has now in her speech therapy. And I'm also going to share with you kind of my journey along the way as far as my understanding or my lack of understanding of speech therapy. And I would love to hear from you, especially if you're a speech therapist. If there's anything that you can clarify, would really appreciate your input in the comments. Be kind. Please be kind. But I would love to hear from you. Because as parents, we want our children to succeed in life. We want to do everything that we can to help them. We oftentimes trust in a lot of different professionals, the doctors and all different kinds of therapists, to guide us through that process. And I think, I know in my experience, a lot of the times a lot of the times therapists don't even want you to participate in some of these therapies. That is something that was always mandatory for me. If my child was going to be behind a closed door, I was going to be there with them. In the beginning, it was about safety because she's nonverbal. Even when she got to where she could have words, she did have some words, she can't communicate in a back and forth way. I can't say, where did you get that bruise, or what happened to you, or why you're upset, and get an answer from her. She's not really able to do that. So it was important for me to be there for safety, and it was also important for me to be there so that I could learn. And so I knew what they were talking about that she did or didn't do in a session, so that I could learn different techniques. That was the whole reason that I wanted to participate. I really have to question therapists that don't want the parents to participate, because I don't think that any child is going to benefit greatly from a half an hour, or 2 hours a week of something if it's not also incorporated into the rest of their life. When we first took our daughter to speech, we were actually seeing an SLPA, and actually I was working all during the week at that time. My husband was taking her to speech therapy. I assumed she was seeing a speech and language pathologist. She was seeing a speech and language pathology assistant. Not that there's anything wrong with an SLPA. I personally think if you have a talent for something like that, you're going to be good at it, whether you're the assistant or you're the SLP. Doesn't matter. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way for our first SLPA. And I actually ended up sending my habilitation master's provider, that's our ABA provider, because she was actually an SLPA. She was going to school to be an SLP, and I say, hey, go with Matt and tell me what you see, because Matt also didn't know what he was supposed to be seeing. I'm like, well, what are they doing today? How is she doing? How's the session going? And he's like, I don't know, they're doing stuff. So I sent her, and she came back and gave me a no. You need to find someone else. So I wanted to see for myself. So I took a day off work and I went in and I observed a session. And this poor girl, it turned out she was right out of school. And I don't know why they would put her with a child that was nonverbal. My daughter had level 3 autism, and an SLPA right out of school, that just didn't seem appropriate to me. But she, for some reason, I don't know if she was planning on working with older children, but the poor girl couldn't even get down on the floor. My daughter was 3. She wanted to be on the floor. She wanted to interact and play on the floor, and she couldn't get down on the floor in a pencil skirt and stiletto heels. And she didn't seem to know how to interact with children in general. So I talked to the agency, and we actually got a SLP that had many, many, many years of experience. Now, just because a person has many, many, many years of experience doesn't mean they're the right therapist for your child, because we're all people, and sometimes we click with each other and sometimes we don't. And I have heard other people, I had heard of other people who said, oh, this person wasn't just a right fit for my child. But this person was so nice, and I just kept thinking, this will get better. I even extended the sessions from an hour to 2 hours, thinking that she'll have more time to warm up to her. And I felt bad. And I know I'm not the only person that feels bad about letting a therapist go, but I did. This person was very nice, and I'm sure they're very good at what they do with other children, but it wasn't working out. And this actually went on for, I'm embarrassed to say this went on for 2 years. The therapy was in our home. We had tried clinic, and then she liked to work in the home, so she came to our home. So it wasn't that Samara wasn't uncomfortable. She didn't work with her any better really in the clinic than she did at home. And I didn't know I didn't know what speech was supposed to look like. They were working on things like labeling, and they were working on appropriate play, which is a whole nother subject that I don't agree with. But they never really accomplished anything, because she spent all her time trying to get Samara to participate. And kind of when I really opened my eyes was when Samara was trying to get away from that therapist. That sounds terrible. This is what I mean by trying not to offend anyone. But she was trying to get away from the therapist. She didn't want to participate, and she climbed up on the edge of the couch. And then when the therapist got closer to her, you could see the kind of a panic in her face, and she slipped and she fell, and she landed on her thumb and broke her thumb. So I'm like, well, maybe we really need to reconsider this. So it wasn't too long after that, I decided to try another speech and language pathologist, and it actually turned out to be an SLPA again. She actually had children on the spectrum herself. She sat down with Samara that very first day in the clinic. We moved to in clinic, and I could see the stuff going on her head, on her face. And she says to me, this isn't the child I was expecting. And I said, really? And she's like, yeah. Looking at her on paper, I was expecting something completely different. And during the 2 years that we were with the other therapist, she had accomplished no goals. And in that first session with that new SLPA, she needed all new goals, because she could do all of those things. Now here's something I want you to think about and tuck away in your brain. The goals that we started with were things that she was not doing when we started speech. Even though she was not participating and she never accomplished any of those goals, she accomplished those goals on her own time without speech. Now that's something that I have noticed about all therapies across the board, honestly. Didn't matter if it was ABA, if it was speech, OT, all her goals, she just seems to accomplish on her own time. We never experienced like there's no speech this week and then she regresses, or there's no OT this month and she regresses. In fact, what I have noticed with my child, now I'm not going to speak for anyone else's children because everybody has a different child with a different personality, with different struggles and different diagnoses, maybe multiple diagnoses. So I just want to say for my child, because I know that there's probably someone else out there that has a similar profile to her, because that just seems to be the way it works. For her, anytime we had a break in therapy, she actually did exponentially better. And I think a lot of that had to do with the lack of anxiety and fear and pressure that therapy placed on her. I think she worked so much better without it. Tuck that into the back of your brain, just so you can kind of notice and be mindful of these things when you're observing your child. So the goals were better with that therapist. Samara was interacting with her better, and I observed a year of that, and after a year, I was still very confused about what we were supposed to be working on. And I brought that up, and I brought that up with not just that SLPA, but with an SLP and with the director of the agency. And I couldn't seem to express or communicate to them what I was having trouble with. And what I was seeing was they were working on things like prepositions. They were working on whether things were heavy or light. They were working on WH questions. Things that, to me, in my mind, seemed more academic in nature, or it was more about the structure or the grammar of language. Yet, they didn't seem to be focusing on the fact that she wasn't understanding a lot of what we said, or at least that's how it seems. I come home from work and I say, "What did you do today, Samara?" And she says, "Wednesday?" "No, what did you do today?" "Thursday?" You know, she doesn't understand. She's hearing me say day in the sentence, and she thinks I'm asking her the day of the week. And everything is like that with her. Unless it's a very simple, I mean, you can ask her sometimes like a yes and something she can answer yes or no to, and you can get an answer. And she can make sentences on her own that have nothing to do with back and forth communication. So if she can say things, sentences, and I actually have a Twitter account for her. It's called Samara Talks, if you want to take a look at that. I have on there everything she said since November of 2017, and lots of sentences, but they were things that didn't a lot of the time rely on any communication with another person. And it's not scripting, it's all very unique. It's not like things she's repeating that she's heard on TV or something. They are her own unique statements, but not to do with communication with another person necessarily. There are a few on there. There are a few I'm very proud of. Those are awesome days when that happens, but it's very, very rare. So, speech therapy. Seems to me, child has communication disorder, speech therapy, sounds like it goes together, sounds like it makes sense, but I wasn't seeing it. And, I just flat out told them, I don't understand what we're working on. Well, this is what they do in school. This is what she would be doing in school. That's what they tell me. And I'm like, but she can't communicate. And this is speech therapy. What is going on? So, long story short, I decided to try another agency. I know I've heard a lot of other parents over the years, talk about, once again, about finding that right match, and nothing was happening with speech therapy until they just found this one magical therapist that just unlocked their child and everything was hunky-dory and now they can talk and communicate and life is good and puppy dogs and rainbows and all that. And I always take those things with a grain of salt, but I'm hopeful. So I'm like, let's jump on this bus and try this again. So off we go to the other agency and we get another SLPA, and it went from being just me unhappy with goals to me protecting my child, literally. I ended up expressing my frustration with my RDI consultant, Kim Isaac. If this is the first time you've seen this channel, we participate in a program called Relationship Development Intervention. It's a parent training program for parents of children with developmental disabilities, not just autism, but developmental disabilities. And I expressed my concern with her. She asked me to take, 2-3 minutes video of the session and what I was upset about. And I went into that session. I got permission from that therapist to take the video for Kim, and I didn't even know where to stop. I couldn't even just take 2 to 3 minutes. Normally, it was so hard because normally I would have intervened, but I videoed the entire 25-minute session. It was the most horrific thing I've ever had to do because she was so disrespectful and honestly, in my opinion, cruel to my child. And at the end, I was almost like in shock. And it bothers me, it really bothers me, knowing that people can drop off their kids in these places and they go behind closed doors. And yeah, they might not leave with bruises on the outside, but I can guarantee you sometimes they might leave with some bruises on the inside, which is very sad. And the even more sad thing is she did this in front of me and she thinks it's okay. Lots of problems with the way we treat autistic people, in my opinion, adults and children. So I won't go into the details of that. If you want to ask me any specific questions in the comments, you're more than welcome to. But I'm not going to go delve deep into that, but it had to stop. So I met with their lead speech therapist and things were changed again. Now, before I go any further, I want to tell you the goals that we had at that time. So new agency, and even though we switched agencies, the goals were pretty much the same as the previous agency that we went to. So then I was even more confused because that kind of solidified that, yes, this is what speech therapists do with children who can't understand what you say, who have receptive language issues, because two different SLPs did an evaluation and we came up with the same goals. So here were our goals. Participate in an unpreferred activity with the clinician for 10 minutes given minimal cues in 3 out of 4 opportunities. Now, I told them at the evaluation, I don't believe in unpreferred activities as goals. And do I want to talk about that now? The reason I don't believe in an unpreferred activity as a goal, and I know they defend this by saying that in life you have to do things that you don't want to do, so this is the way to teach them to do things that they don't want to do. So they say, what does Samara really hate to do? Oh, she hates puzzles. Let's make her do a puzzle for 10 minutes. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. And when I told them, when we went to redo these goals and I told them this, I said, Samara does things she doesn't like to do every single day. She empties the trash in the bathroom. She refills the toilet paper rolls. She picks up her toys. She throws things away when she's done. She eats her dinner. Sometimes she doesn't want to eat her dinner. That is an unpreferred task some days. Going on errands with us is not a preferred task. There's all kinds of things that she does every day that are not preferred tasks. And you know what? She does them. Sometimes she's upset about it, like any kid would be. This is not something we need to teach with a goal. And personally in life, if we're talking about what we're doing, preparing our children for the future, for their adult life, in my adult life, the only times I remember doing something I didn't want to do is either because I did something stupid that got me into a situation where I had to do something I didn't want to do in order to, rectify that problem I made for myself, or I'm doing something I don't really want to do in order to get something in return. So I don't really believe in unpreferred activities. Do what you want with it. It's just not something that was going to work for us. Demonstrate an understanding of subject and possessive pronouns given minimal cues with 80% accuracy. Follow 2 and 3 step directions given minimal cues over 80% accuracy over 3 sessions. Identify emotions in pictures and in narratives given moderate cues with 80% accuracy over 3 sessions. Now that's another big one for me that I don't like. I've never been a fan, and they did this in ABA too. Teaching children emotions with cards is not functional. Babies learn about emotions from watching their parents' face, from watching family, from watching the other human beings they are around. They do not learn it from cards. Your autistic child will also not learn it from cards. They might recognize a picture, they might recognize or memorize a face or a type of expression, but that doesn't mean that they're going to recognize it on another human being. And it's just a different connection in the brain. It's not a practical way to learn emotions. If you want to teach your child emotions, do it through your interactions every day. And I have some videos in my RDI playlist. If you go to my RDI playlist, you'll see I have in the titles, I have what our focus was, what the objective was for each activity, and you'll see some in there that talk about spotlighting emotions. Take a look at those. Those are good examples of how to teach your children about emotions. Answer simple WH questions about a narrative given minimum cues with 80% accuracy over 3 sessions. So what they were doing with that was they were reading a book and then asking her afterward, like not an entire book and then asking questions, but reading a page or two and then asking a question about something in the story. So she had the visual cues. I didn't really have a problem with that, but I felt like it was almost too advanced, or there was some steps missing because she had difficulty with that. And I don't know quite where, if it's about memory or if it's just back to not understanding the actual words of what the question is. WH questions still continue to be something that we struggle with. And I have always felt that it went back to maybe an auditory processing issue. I know Kim had mentioned to me that sometimes there's so much going on in the mind already, like there's not enough mind space to focus and answer a question. So I don't know if that's what's going on, but none of these things were really addressing that issue. And I didn't want her memorizing things. And my least worry was prepositions, which she actually knew. She actually knew all her prepositions, but she doesn't always answer people when they ask her questions. So, they've been asking her, literally, she's been being asked prepositions for 3 years already, and she knows them. So I wasn't worried about that. Oh, and rhyming. That was one that was in our goals from the previous agency that I was so confused about. Rhyming. We had a rhyming goal. Like, she can't tell me what happened to her today, but we're worried about whether or not she can rhyme. This makes no sense to me whatsoever. So, once again, switched speech therapists. The new speech therapist lead that I had spoken to that oversees all the speech therapists at this agency actually was very interested in RDI, and she has kind of taken off with that. I was very happy about that because I haven't met a lot of professionals that know a lot about it, unfortunately. And she's had enough experience that she looked it over on the RDI Connect website and was able to really see the value in it, and she started implementing it with her own kiddos as well, or own, not her children, but her clients, her patients. So, new therapist, we had some tweaking to do with the new therapist. She was doing a lot of really slow over enunciation, and I didn't feel that that was something that Samara would appreciate. And that was something actually that the therapist we had for 2 years tended to do, is over enunciate a lot, and our SLPA HAB person had mentioned it to me several times. She's like, I think that's really disrespectful to Samara, and I don't think she likes it. And I agree, I don't think she does. And so when this therapist started to do it, the very first day, first session, she's gonna do a pretend play. She gets out the little Fisher-Price play barn, and I'm like, oh great, you know, she's gonna do something that's actually interactive. We're not just doing flashcards and barking orders. She's not gonna have an experience with her and interact with her and do something through play. And she picks up the little plastic piece of hay and she says, "This is hay." Then she picks up the cow. "Cow, eat hay." And I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, so we stopped that, and the lead agreed that, you know, that wasn't appropriate for Samara. So, new goals. Answer who questions with 80% accuracy given minimal support across 3 sessions. So they do this a lot of times through pretend play, and they'll say, like lately they've been getting out a little plastic, like Fisher-Price type house with little people, and she'll put the little person like in the bathroom and somebody in the bedroom, and then she'll say, who is on the potty? And see if Samara responds. Second goal, make 15 spontaneous comments and requests during cooperative play with minimal support across 3 sessions. So this was just to kind of see where she's at communicatively. Wow, that's a hard word. Communicatively. And see what kind of spontaneous things that she gets. And I actually had referred the lead SLP to my Twitter account, Samara Talks, at Samara Talks. So she could see the things that Samara does say, what she is capable of saying versus what she's not understanding, or maybe not understanding when we're speaking to her. Then the third one is participate in auditory processing activities with 80% accuracy given minimal support across 3 sessions. So this goes back to the auditory processing piece. We have not had her tested for auditory processing disorder. It seems to be difficult to find somebody to even test for that. And regardless of whether or not she's tested, they can still do things in speech therapy, she says. So what they have been doing is flashcard based, but it is more about just seeing what she's understanding. So they'll have 2 words that are similar. Lately what they've been doing is a puppet. She gives Samara a dinosaur puppet, and she'll have 2 words that sound similar. Like she might have cup and pup. Maybe that's not a good example. I don't know. I'm not a speech therapist. But she'll have 2 words that sound similar, and she says, dinosaur, eat cup. And Samara has to pick. And it does have a word, and Samara can read, has a word and a picture. And she has to have her dinosaur eat the word that she says. And so they're trying to figure out what she's hearing, if there's any sort of patterns in maybe sounds she's not picking up or hearing. So they're trying to really hone in on that. So I'm like, yes, you know, this is what I feel like we should really be working on. We should be working on what is she understanding, how is she understanding it, and how can we help her communicate, not working on rhyming and prepositions. Right? Does that make sense? So, right now, she's doing really well. She's doing really well with her answers with those auditory processing questions. So, I'm not sure where this is going to lead, and I will keep you guys updated. But I wanted to share this with you because I think it's really, really important for us to be really involved with our kids' therapies, know what their goals are, how they're doing, and really be mindful as a parent what you think your child needs and what you should be working on. So I hope that was helpful for you today. If you have any questions at all, if you have any comments, if you're a speech therapist and you have any kind of input, please put them kindly, please be kind, always be kind, in the comments below. And I will talk to you next time. Have a great day.